and thank you for joining our NHD Academy Campout session entitled Property Tax 101, brought to you by nhdacademy.com. My name is Jeff Bakoski, and I'll be your host for this session. I'm the Southern California Director of Sales for First American NHD and JCP LGS disclosures. There will be some time for Q&A after the presentation, so please hold your questions until the end. And now, it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker, David Hill. David has over 30 years of experience in the property tax and mortgage banking industries. An accomplished leader, he has worked in key areas including operations, business development, and strategic planning. He is a member of the Mortgage Bankers Association and a veteran of the United States Army. Here to walk through Prop 19 and help guide us through all things taxes, please join me in giving a warm welcome to David Hill.
Welcome to Day 3 of First American Real Estate Disclosures Annual Campout. My name is David Hill, Director of Property Tax Disclosure Operations, and today I'm going to be covering Property Tax 101. Some of the items that we'll discuss are an overview of California property taxes, supplemental property tax bills, Proposition 19, disclosure requirements per Civil Code 1102.6b and 1102.6c. We'll review a property tax disclosure report and the new property tax estimator. Property taxes, while they're not hazards like flood, fire, landslide, or some of the other typical hazards we're familiar with, homeowners are more likely to see them on an annual basis. Property taxes are the main source of funding for California local governments, which include counties, cities, school districts, special districts, and other municipal agencies. The primary method for collecting property taxes is through the annual secured property tax bill. The chart below shows the state and local revenue for California in fiscal year 2020, and as you can see, ad valorem taxes made up a large percentage of overall revenue. So what's included on a secured tax bill? There are two types of charges. You have ad valorem taxes, which are based on the value of the property. And it's important to note that the property's assessed value may not be the same as the current market value. The market value may be much higher than the property's assessed value. Ad valorem taxes will change when the property is sold. The assessed value may be reset to the sale amount of the property. Ad valorem taxes include your general Prop 13 1% tax rate. It may also include voter-approved bonds and tax rate overrides from schools, community colleges, water districts, cities, and other agencies. Ad valorem taxes are subject to the $7,000 homeowner value exemption, as well as other possible exemptions such as veterans, religious, nonprofits, and others. In addition to your ad valorem taxes, you also have direct and special assessments. Some counties refer to them as fixed assessments. These charges are not based on the property's assessed value, and therefore they're not affected when the property is sold. They may include parcel tax measures from schools, libraries, public safety, parks, and other agencies. Also included may be Prop 218 benefit assessment districts, as well as other special districts, flood control, maintenance districts, and a variety of others. Also included under direct and special assessments are Mello-Roos and 1915 bond districts, as well as property assessed clean energy, also referred to as PACE or HERO. So this is an overview of the property tax calendar. So in January, the assessed value is determined for the upcoming fiscal year. And then July 1st is the beginning of the fiscal year. In August and September, the County Board of Supervisors will approve the property tax rates. and the auditor will compile the property tax roll in August and September also. And the tax roll is the assessed value times the tax rate. That's your ad valorem charges, as well as your direct or fixed assessments. In September, October, the tax collector is mailing out the secured property tax bills. Many homeowners have already received them. If not, they should be received within the next couple of weeks. The first installment is due on November the 1st, delinquent on December the 10th. Second installment is due February 1st, delinquent on April the 10th. In May, delinquency notices are mailed on properties that have outstanding taxes, and on June 30th is the end of the fiscal year. If any of the delinquency dates fall on a weekend or a holiday, the date rolls to the next business day. We're currently in fiscal year 2022-23, which started on July 1st and will end on June 30th of 2023. This is an overview of the property tax process. It shows the various agencies that are involved. You have the assessor, they're assessing the property values, the auditor controller, again, they're calculating the taxes and extending the tax roll. And the tax collector issues the bill and collects the taxes, and then, of course, the taxpayer pays the taxes. This is an example of a secured property tax bill from Sacramento County. And you can see on the left here, we have the direct levies and assessments, county service area for lights, water drainage studies, California Statewide Community Development Authority, that's a 1915 bond district. This property has a couple of Mello-Roos CFDs, and then the Sacramento Area Flood Control. On the right side, we have ad valorem taxes, which again are based on the value of the property. There's your 1% Prop 13 tax rate, and we also have school district and community college bonds. Supplemental tax bills occur when there's a change in assessed value, usually resulting from a change in ownership, completed new construction, or demolition of the property. Supplemental bills are normally issued within 6 months after the event, whether it's a closing, construction, etc. If it's a demolition, then it's normally going to be a negative supplemental bill, essentially a credit back to the homeowner. A buyer may receive 1 or 2 supplemental tax bills depending on when the transaction occurs. January through May, they'll receive 2 supplemental bills, one for the remaining portion of the current roll year, and the second one for the upcoming roll year. June through December, 1 supplemental tax bill that covers the upcoming roll year. And simply put, a supplemental tax bill is a one-time bill that pays the county the difference between what the taxes were for the seller and what they are now for the buyer for the current and upcoming tax year. And that's a quote from the California State Board of Equalization. And supplemental tax bills will not include direct assessments, as they are not affected by a transfer of ownership unless exemptions are involved. And in that case, it would show up on the future upcoming tax year. Total tax liability in future years may increase or decrease based on the sale price. In most cases, they're going to increase. And this is an example of the supplemental tax bill calculation formula. You take the sale amount, subtract the current assessed value, and multiply it by the tax rate. In this case here, the sale amount was $725,000, assessed value of $427,000. That's a difference of $298,000. Multiply it by the ad valorem tax rate, and you have a total supplemental tax bill of $3,561.10. And that amount would be prorated based on when the transfer occurs. Here's an example of a supplemental tax bill. You can see here, this is the tax rate portion, and it notifies when the actual transaction occurred. In this case here, change of ownership on January 13th of 2021. It shows the proration formula here. Also has the new assessed values as well as the prior assessed values. This was most likely new development as it does not have an improved value for the prior year. And there's the tax rate and the supplemental tax amounts. Okay. So, Proposition 19. As we mentioned earlier, upon transfer of ownership, the assessed value may be reset to the sale price or the current market value, which can result in a substantial change in ad valorem taxes on the property. Prop 19, the Home Protection for Seniors, Severely Disabled Families, and Victims of Wildfire or Natural Disasters Act, was enacted in November of 2020, became effective in December of 2020. There are certain provisions that became operative in February of 2021. It expanded certain transfer benefits and eliminated or reduced certain inheritance benefits. The individual or their representative, that's individual property owner, should contact the county assessor to determine if the transfer is eligible for an exclusion. Some of the key provisions for seniors and severely disabled allows persons over 55 or severely disabled of any age to transfer the taxable value of their primary residence to a replacement residence anywhere in the state. Prior to Prop 19, there were only certain counties that participated in the value transfer program. As a result of Prop 19, you can transfer the value anywhere in the state. Primary residence means a residence that's eligible for the homeowners or disabled veterans exemption. Taxable value means the base year value plus inflationary adjustments of 2%. And that's the factored base year value. Replacement residence must be purchased or constructed within 2 years of the sale of the original primary residence. No limit to market value of replacement property, but amount above the original property owner's market value is added to the transferred taxable value. The primary residence value transfer can be done up to 3 times for an individual during their lifetime. Other provisions are a transfer between parent-child and grandparent-grandchild. Again, they must claim the property as their primary residence. The home will have a factored year base value. The value limit is equal to the home's taxable value at the time of transfer plus $1 million. Any amount of market value exceeding the limit is added to the taxable value. The $1 million allowance will be adjusted annually beginning in 2023. And for transfers between grandparents and grandchildren, the parents of the grandchild must be deceased at time of transfer. Another provision is for disaster victims from wildfire or a governor-declared disaster. Allows victims of wildfire or natural disasters to transfer taxable value of their primary residence to a replacement residence anywhere in the state. Same conditions for seniors, except there is no age requirement. Damage must be more than half of the home's improvement value to qualify and considered substantially damaged. And here's the value limit test for the parent-child or grandparent-grandchild transfer. You can see in this example here, the current assessed value of the property is $300,000. And if you add the $1 million, the excluded amount could be up to $1.3 million. The fair market value of the property they're purchasing, or excuse me, they are inheriting, is 1.5 million. So that's a difference of 200,000. That 200,000 would be added to the factored year base value of 300,000 to arrive at a new assessed value of 500,000. And these are some of the forms that are involved in base year transfer applications. And this is from Sacramento County. Most counties have this information on their assessors' websites. And this is an example of a base year value transfer application form. Property tax disclosure requirements. Civil Code 1102.6b, which covers special tax and/or 1915 Bond Act assessments, requires a seller of residential property, 1 to 4 units, to disclose the existence of Mello-Roos Community Facilities Districts, also referred to as CFDs, 1915 Bond Act Assessment Districts, or ADs, and voluntary contractual assessments, PACE, to prospective purchasers. Disclosure is made in the form of a notice of special tax, which we include in our tax disclosure report. That notice must include the following information: the district or entity name, the current year special assessment or special tax amount. If it's a Mello-Roos district, we have to include the maximum special tax amount, which may be higher than the current year charge amount. How much will that maximum amount increase each year if it's a Mello-Roos again? And the final year for collecting the special tax or assessment, along with the contact telephone number. One of the questions that we often get is, what's the difference between a Mello-Roos and a 1915 bond district? This chart here outlines the primary differences, starts with the formation. Mello-Roos, 2/3 majority. 1915 bonds is a simple majority. Mello-Roos can be used to finance facilities and infrastructure or services, which are specified in the district's formation documents. 1915 bonds can be used to finance facilities and infrastructure or fees financed by and within the assessment district. The duration, how long will it be levied? Mello-Roos is either for a specific period of time outlined in the formation documents, or the bond maturity, once the bonds mature. If it's a services Mello-Roos district, it may be levied in perpetuity or forever. If it's 1915 bond districts, they will levy until the bonds are matured. At that point, they will no longer collect. The boundaries for Mello-Roos can be expanded through annexation of new property. Property owners can choose to annex into Mello-Roos districts, usually builders and developers. 1915 bonds, once the district is formed, the boundaries are fixed. Mello-Roos rates can be based on the property characteristics, which may include the lot or dwelling size, along with the density, or they may be a flat rate within a specific zone or tract of the district. 1915 bond assessments are based on the benefit to the property and the repayment of the bonds. Annual rate increases, Mello-Roos, anywhere from 0 to 5%, as indicated in the formation document. However, if the increase is tied to an index, such as the Consumer Price Index or Construction Cost Index, the annual increase may exceed 5%. 1915 bonds, their assessments are fairly level based on the debt service requirements and the fees that are being paid through the special assessment. And There's almost 2,900 Mello-Roos districts in California and almost 2,000 1915 bond districts. These numbers change on an annual basis as new districts are formed and other districts mature. Property Assessed Clean Energy, or PACE. It's the program for homeowners to obtain financing for energy efficiency products, renewable energy upgrades, earthquake and fire improvements. It offers 100% financing for up to 30 years, and they're repaid by annual assessments collected on a property's annual secured property tax bill. The assessment lien remains with the property until it is fully repaid. The lien transfers to the new property owner upon sale if it's not paid off at closing. A buyer's lender may require the PACE contract to be paid off and the lien released prior to closing. Examples of PACE programs are HERO, Y-Green, California First, Big Tree, Alliance NRG, and various others. Disclosing PACE. So PACE liens are recorded as Mello-Roos or 1915 bonds. Therefore, they require disclosure under 1102.6b. The same as with Mello-Roos or 1915. They have a special tax or assessment lien that's recorded against the property. Property can have multiple PACE contracts financing different types of improvements. Most disclosure companies rely on the annual property tax roll to disclose PACE. Depending on the contract date or when the homeowner enters into the PACE agreement, it may take up to 14 months before a PACE lien appears on the tax roll. If a property owner signed a PACE contract in September, the 22-23 tax bills have already been mailed out, so that assessment is not going to appear on the tax roll for a full year. First American, we track newly recorded liens and can disclose PACE within weeks of the lien being recorded against the property. We also include a copy of the lien document or contract with our tax disclosure reports. And this is an example of pages from a PACE lien document. This one here indicates that it's Mello-Roos. And this one on the right indicates this is HERO. And here you can see that it mentions improvement bonds under the Improvement Bond Act of 1915. Hence, they require disclosure under Civil Code 1102.6b. So in addition to 1102.6b, there's 1102.6c, the supplemental tax bill notification. And again, requires seller of residential property 1 to 4 units to provide a notice of supplemental property tax bill to a prospective buyer that notifies them of the following. California property tax law requires the assessor to revalue property at the time of ownership change. And because of this law, you may receive 1 or 2 supplemental tax bills depending on when your loan or transaction closes. And we talked about the time frame for when a buyer would receive 1 or 2 supplemental tax bills. The supplemental tax bills are not mailed to your lender. You have arranged for your property tax payments to be paid through an impound account. The supplemental bills will not be paid by the lender. It is your responsibility to pay these supplemental bills directly to the tax collector. If you have any questions concerning this matter, please contact your local tax collector's office. This is basically the notice that we include in our tax disclosure report along with the signature line for the buyer. And we will take a look at an example. Okay, and now it's time to review a tax disclosure report, and we'll also look at our new property tax estimator. The report we're going to review is for a property that's in the city of Rancho Cordova, Sacramento County. And this is our industry standard report. On the left side here, you have bookmarks that will take you to various sections of the report. So we're going to go ahead and go to the tax report section. And you can see here's a summary of the determinations. The property is subject to Mello-Roos, 1915 Bond Act assessments, property assessed clean energy contracts, and subject to one or more direct assessments. And the state responsibility area fire prevention fee is suspended until 2031. And on the right side, this will take you to various pages within the report. And here's the notice of special tax. The property is subject to Mello-Roos. So we provide information on the Mello-Roos districts, the agency name, what's it paying for, the maturity date. This district matures in 2055-56, current charge amount, and the maximum charge amount or levy amount that could have been charged by the district. And this maximum charge amount will increase by 2% each year. We also provide the contact information for obtaining additional information from the administrator. Accelerated foreclosure, that means that this district may initiate foreclosure proceedings sooner than the 5-year standard period if the property taxes are delinquent. And this property is subject to multiple Mello-Roos districts. So we provide the details on each district. These are services districts that increase by the Consumer Price Index. They are levied in perpetuity, meaning forever. And here's another services district, and this is for Cordova Rec and Park District. And again, it's levied in perpetuity. The property is also subject to 1915 Bond Act assessments. And in this case here, they happen to be PACE contract assessments, which fall under the 1915 Bond Act. And we provide the agency name. And again, it's Energy Improvement Contract Assessment Program. See contract documents, which we provide a copy of the contract. The maturity date, since PACE contracts are property specific, we reference review contract documents. We do provide the current charge amount that's on the tax roll. And PACE assessments are also subject to accelerated foreclosure. This property has 2 PACE assessments, and we'll take a look at the contracts. And this section here provides additional information regarding PACE, as well as we have additional information on the accelerated foreclosure program. And approved districts which have been formed and authorized but are not yet on the tax roll would not be included in this report unless specified. And here is the current property tax bill summary. It's based on the tax year 22-23 database, and current assessed value, first and second installment amounts, total tax. Here are the ad valorem taxes. We have, in addition to the 1%, community college and a couple of school district bonds. Here are the direct or special assessments. We have a couple for the city of Rancho Cordova, a water drainage studies assessment, and the 4 Mello-Roos districts, and the 2 PACE assessments, for a total of 8,430 in direct assessments. The asterisks indicate that these are either Mello-Roos or 1915 bond or PACE assessments, and reference back up to the notice of special tax for additional information. If any of these districts offered senior citizen exemptions, they would be listed in this section here. Here is the property tax estimator. It assists the buyer with calculating taxes after the sale. And they would enter the sale price, multiply it by the ad valorem tax rate, add in your direct assessments. It's going to give them the total tax amount after the sale. And of course, they could subtract out PACE if the seller was going to pay off the PACE assessments. And we have a link, so it takes you to a web page. So you don't have to fill out the form manually. You come here, enter a sale price. And that's a little high. So let's bring it down to 550,000. Put in a month of sale, December, and you can see it calculates the future tax amount after sale, as well as the supplemental tax bills. So the buyer would receive one supplemental tax bill for $760.71. And this is included in each report. And we also provide information on exemptions that the buyer may be able to obtain. And we have the supplemental tax notice, as mentioned earlier. This is required per Civil Code 1102.6C. Notifies the buyer that they're going to receive a supplemental tax bill that's not mailed to their lender, and they would be responsible for paying it. And we provide the county assessor's website for obtaining additional information. And again, here's the supplemental tax estimator, which is also included on the web page that we just reviewed. SRA fire prevention fee, again, suspended until 2031. Private transfer fee, these items are not included on the property tax bill, so we provide an advisory to see your title report for the existence of any transfer fee requirements. And that's the end of the tax report section. As mentioned earlier, we also include the PACE lien documents or contracts. And this property is subject to two, so we've included both contracts. And legal description. Here's the repayment schedule for this first contract. It's collected until 2027-28. And here's the section where it identifies that this assessment is subject or authorized pursuant to the 1915 Bond Act. And this first contract is paying for windows, doors, skylights, and an exterior window shading device. Here's the second contract. And contract is several pages. So going to enter page number to go to a specific section. And paying for solar panels with monitoring and solar inverters. And then we have the repayment schedule for this contract. And you can see this contract will be collected until tax year 2042-2043. Okay. So those are the PACE contracts that we would include in the tax report. Now let's take a look at our new property tax estimator. So the property tax estimator will allow you to obtain a tax estimate on any property in the state of California. So we'll put in a property address. This property is in the city of Roseville. And doing a search, verifying the property information. Select the property. Pulls up the current assessment information on the property. Assessed value, the ad valorem taxes, as well as the special assessments. We enter our sale price. Go ahead and enter $700,000. Put in a closing month of December and calculate, and shows the ad valorem taxes after sale, as well as the special assessments and the total after sale tax amount and the supplemental tax bill. So the buyer would receive one supplemental tax bill. If you wanted to search for another property, you click remove property, and let's go ahead and put put in another property. And this property is in orange. And then we'll select the property. And current assessment information, as well as taxes, enter sell price, and closing month, December, calculate, and there is the after sale tax amount as well as the supplemental tax bill that will apply to the property or that the buyer will receive. So this is the new tax estimator. Again, it allows you to obtain an estimate on any property in the state of California. So that's all that I have for today. And if you have any questions, we'll be more than happy to answer those questions. And I'd like to thank everyone for attending today's session.
Well, good afternoon, Mr. David Hill. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Mr. Cantrell. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for joining us. Thank you for your informative session just now. I am our fill-in host here. We're having some technical difficulties. So Jeff Bukowski has taken a back seat and I am taking the reins. So everyone, thank you for attending Camp Out today. Very excited. We're going to go ahead and move forward with our live question and answer session. So if you would, please go to your Zoom account and raise your hand if you have a question, and then we will go ahead and prompt you to unmute yourself, and we will unleash you on our specialized speaker today, David Hill. So with that said, it looks like we have a question from Lisa. Go ahead.
Are you guys going to have this PowerPoint be able to print out? Because some of it went kind of fast.
Absolutely. We are
Okay.
planning on posting all of our recordings from all sessions of Camp Out, as well as all collateral we will make available. So just be on the lookout for that. Lisa, if you don't mind me asking, where are you located? We'll make sure to get you a copy.
I'm at Southwest Escrow in Temecula.
Okay, I'm writing it down right now.
Thank you.
So David, how long have you been doing this racket? You've been loving taxes to death for how long now? Uh-oh, we lost his mic. Hold please. Hang on, David. Bear with me, sir. Trying to find your unmute button. Not the smoothest here. There we go. And you're on.
Okay. Property taxes for a little over 30 years. Property tax disclosure for the last 15. And prior to tax disclosure, I was in tax service where we worked with mortgage companies, helping them pay taxes on their portfolios.
Any horror stories that you can share with us, David? Any just gregarious, out of control taxes that really kind of caught you by surprise?
Having been in the business for 30 years, I've seen a lot of different things. And of course, a couple of ups and downs in the financial markets, hence properties, assessed values going up and down. And obviously with the pace in California, that's been interesting.
Sure.
A lot of homeowners are utilizing PACE to make improvements prior to selling properties.
Okay.
But as with the word taxes, it can get interesting.
Oh, absolutely. I think when it comes to disclosure, anything pertaining to money or financial obligation is pretty up there as far as importance, right?
Absolutely.
Fantastic,
Yes.
fantastic. Well, yeah. So PACE is kind of the latest and greatest from a disclosure perspective. Is there anything else that maybe is on the horizon, or any other tax kind of relevant disclosure that people should be aware of that comes to mind?
Well, I think everyone's familiar with Mello-Roos, and I think in the early 2000s, we saw a slowdown as far as the formation of new Mello-Roos districts. With the recent increase in construction, we are seeing more districts being formed in some of the newly developing areas. If you move away from the coast, and go out in the Sacramento area, as well as the Inland Empire. We're seeing a lot of new Mello-Roos formations as builders are developing in those areas.
Gotcha. So it's interesting to hear that the popularity of that financing vehicle remains strong. Are you seeing a drop off in the amount of PACE liens that are being created in recent months or days? Like how's the popularity of PACE these days?
PACE does seem to be declining.
Okay.
A couple of years ago, LA County discontinued their PACE program. However, PACE is still available in certain incorporated cities within LA County.
Okay.
But there does seem to be a decrease in PACE accounts. We're actually getting close to completing our annual tax update. And so we are seeing a decrease in the number of properties that are subject to PACE liens.
Gotcha. Looks like we have a question from the audience here. So I'm going to go ahead and ask Lucia Camarillo to unmute, and we'll hear what she has to say.
Hey, David, on Prop 19, do you have any analytics on how many or who's utilizing them? Is it being utilized? Are we seeing any high numbers in Prop 19 usage?
Unfortunately, that information is not publicly available. However, I think what we've seen in the last couple of years as a result of, I attribute a lot of it to the COVID-19 situation, where you have multi-generational households where generations are now moving out on their own. So they're taking ownership of properties that may have been owned by grandparents, parents, and so on. So I think there's probably an increase in Prop 19 activity over the last couple of years.
Interesting. Okay. Thank you for that, David. It looks like we have another question. Miss Yang, I believe you have your hand up.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I was trying to figure out how the mute thing works.
No worries.
Will you please speak to the appearance of solar, whether it's solar equipment or maintenance related to the solar that appears on prelims?
Okay.
Thank you.
So interestingly enough, I had a question from one of our agents this morning regarding a property that has solar improvements. So you walk up to the house and you see solar panels on the roof, and you wonder if they're financed using PACE. And if it's PACE, property assessed clean energy, that means it's going to appear on the property tax bill. There are other methods for financing PACE, financing solar improvements that are not through the PACE program. And if you use a method other than PACE, then it's not going to appear on the property tax bill, but there may still be a lien from the lender that provided the funding for those improvements. And that's the situation that we saw this morning. There was a UCC document recorded that appeared in the preliminary tax report, the preliminary title report, but it would not appear on the tax roll. So again, there are different methods for financing solar improvements. If it's PACE, it's going to appear on the property tax roll. Other methods will not appear on the tax roll.
Got it. That makes sense. So just a reminder, everyone, if you have a question for our trained professional here, David Hill, please just raise your hand. Looks like we do have another question. Elizabeth, what would you like to know?
Hi there. I joined late because I was in another meeting, but I came on where you were showing the property tax estimator. Now, is that just basically a hyperlink? I know that you said it was new. Is that a hyperlink now in all of your reports, or do we need to access that differently?
Okay, so the estimator that I showed today, actually I showed two. There's one that's based on the link that's in our report. So if you look at a PDF copy of the report, you go to the tax estimator section, you click on the link, and it'll take you to an estimator for that specific property. However, the new estimator that I mentioned, if you go out to fanhd.com or disclosures.com, there is a tax estimator link on the main page, and it will allow you to estimate taxes on almost any property in the state. And I say almost because there are some exceptions. If you have properties that are totally exempt, new development, we're not able to do estimates on those properties for different reasons. But I think we probably cover about 95% of the properties in the state. You enter either a property address or the APN if you have it, and it provides the same information as if you ordered a tax report. So that's the difference with the new tax estimator, is you can calculate taxes again on almost any property in the state without actually ordering a report.
It's a pretty powerful tool. And I know the team has been working diligently to get that to market. So just if I can kind of piggyback on what David shared, there's also another educational resource on that estimator. If you're talking about terms like ad valorem or supplemental or Mello-Roos, there's even a glossary of terms that's available on that online tax estimator. I would highly encourage you guys to take a look at it. Just become versed with the tools that are at your disposal, and consider leveraging them as much as you possibly can. But that tax estimator is a great pre-screening tool. If you're working with buyers and you're looking for other properties or multiple properties, maybe take a look at what the tax liability is and compare, you know, property one to property two, and let your buyers make an even more informed decision, courtesy of that resource that is available on our websites. So thanks, David, for a sneak peek at that. I know it's live, and I know we're really excited about it. So would love to hear some feedback in the field once it starts rolling in. Any other questions out there? Oh, David, you got something to say?
Yeah, Josh, something else I'll mention about the tax estimator is there is a feature on it. If you have a property that has PACE assessments, there's a feature that will allow you to remove the PACE assessments from your calculations. So since the seller is most likely going to have to pay off that PACE lien before it can transfer ownership, again, we added that feature that will allow you to remove the PACE assessment from the future calculation.
Yeah, good point. Just another feature, what you would expect from the greatest, right? Way to go, David. All right, one more solicitation here from the crowd. Any other questions for David Hill? Looks like we have one more from Patrick McClellan.
Okay, can you hear me there?
We can.
Okay, cool. David, first of all, great presentation. I always learn something from what you say there. What I'm curious about, you mentioned PACE and how they're becoming less popular apparently these days. PACE, as you mentioned, can be used to finance earthquake retrofits, and I'm a big fan of earthquakes. In fact, we had one during our webinar the first day as we're talking. There was an earthquake near San Jose. But I just wanted to sort of mention a public service announcement, I guess, that there is free money available right now to help people with older homes finance the retrofitting of their property. $3,000 from a new grant program that's just been extended to dozens of zip codes in California. And if agents out there have somebody who's interested in an earthquake retrofit to their home, online, go to Bolton Brace program and register for it. Apparently they're being really hammered right now, and they're really slow in the registrations because it's so popular. So Bolton Brace program, look it up on Google. And that's it.
Thanks, Pat.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Pat.
Appreciate that. All right, folks, I think that's just about all the time we have. If you do have further questions, please feel free to email them into nhd.sales@firstam.com. We're more than happy to get you the answers that you need. But this is our last session of this year's virtual NHD Academy Campout. Thank you one and all for attending. And be on the lookout for further communication and access to all the resources and all the recordings from this week's events. This is Josh Cantrell signing off. Have a great day, everyone.